This isn't your typical motorsports podcast. You're listening to Crush This, a monster truck podcast presented by High Octane Coffee and J Concepts. A show where we take you inside the minds of your favorite drivers, past and present, of the monster truck industry. And now, your hosts, Brad Shaw and Dan Chichagash. Buckle in. The show starts now.
And welcome to a brand new episode of Crush This, a Monster Truck Podcast Live. My name is Bradshaw, also known as the Monster Truck Canucker, and with me always, as is my trusty dusty co-host, Mr. Dan Chichagash. Dan, how's it going, buddy?
What? I'm doing good. Yeah, we're just getting ready for some a cool display over in Pennsylvania this weekend, and pretty much not missing a beat. Just got back from a Hotsy dealership in Iowa, which we were lucky enough to miss because the big old storm that happened yesterday knocked and kicked around a lot of stuff that was going on in the area we were in, Des Moines. And but it was a cool display. People liked it. People also liked the RC truck, which was pretty cool. So can't complain about that. But you know, oh, look at that, digging that hooligan t-shirt.
Yeah.
But
I have probably 10 hooligan shirts and like 3 hoodies, so.
Well, Ken Block would be happy. Anyway, you know, and so that's pretty much it for my boat. Getting ready for some fun stuff in the near future. So
Yeah,
how about
for
you?
me, just been busy with graphic design stuff as always, kind of, you know, allowing me to, you know, have, you know, a little bit of a second income, doing a lot of stuff for Zane with the Renegade Monster Truck Tour. Posted kind of like my own little custom design on my Facebook last night. Probably posted to the Facebook page for us here, just so people can kind of take a look at it. It's kind of video game inspired, so it's kind of what my idea was. But besides that, just, you know, working, you know, get the day off tomorrow, just gonna be relaxing, playing some iRacing quite a bit. So I've been kind of jamming on that, trying to get out of rookie ovals and get rid of, you know, the idiots that like to wreck you every single race. And,
well, maybe at the end of the show you could let them know what your tag or whatever for iRacing, and see if anyone wants you know, gets on the game and race you and stuff like that. I started playing a game called Wreckfest, so if anyone on the PlayStation Network want to play that, I'm down for that. But also,
I think Wreckfest is cross-platform. If it is, I'd play on PC. So if it's cross-platform, you're going down, Cheech.
Whatever. Let's do this. But anyway, I want to thank our sponsors, High Octane Coffee, J Concepts, JB Scale Graphics, Back Channel Productions, and also 6B Apparel, and Marty Garza and his Monster Truck Technology book. Thank you for all your guys' help and support. A T-shirt for Brian is coming soon. I don't know what happened to the shipping people, but I sent them your address, and they sent it to me. So I'm still trying to figure that out. That package is going to you through J Concepts. But let's talk about the guest here, Brad. I know him pretty good. When I was working at Monster Jam, he was my, I guess, somewhat of one of 8 bosses that I had. Yep. And,
you know, and I know him well from watching Speed Channel. You know, that's kind of where I got my introduction to this man.
That sounds creepy. But anyway, you know, that I know him very well. We hung out. We went to WrestleMania 33 together, which is freaking cool. And then we're going fishing, and I do call him a friend of mine, and wanted to catch up and talk to him and talk about his you know, past and all that stuff. So let me bring him out. So this is Mr. Dustin Brown.
What's going on, guys?
Hey. Not much. Your audio sounds a lot better.
Well, now that I learned how to turn all this stuff on my phone.
but hey, at least it didn't take you like an hour to log on compared to some other people we've had.
I got worried, tried to log in and nothing worked. So Googling stuff, trying to figure out how to make it work. But hey, we're here.
Yes, we are. Yeah. But let's like I did on the timeline here. We'll talk about the timeline and stuff like that. And people may not know, but you're part of a motorsport family. I don't think a lot of people know that your dad was a world champion mud racer. So let's start from there and work our way over.
Yeah, my dad drove class 5, class 6 motor racer. If you watch Truck and Tractor Power back in the day, it was the BDS car. We traveled with who I considered Uncle Fred and Money Pit. You know, we had the 2-car trailer. We traveled up and down the road. That's how I spent my summers from when I was a young kid, probably from 1990 on through, you know, that kind of mud racing kind of dried up, 98, 99. It's where I met Tom Mintz. First time I ever met Tom Mintz, he threw me in a mud pit in Memphis, Tennessee at the old Coliseum. And then he took me out back and hosed me down with a fire hose, and it was like 10 degrees out. It was the middle of January. But, you know, them were great times growing up, going to mud races. Back then, it was big time. You know, we would go every weekend in
I think
tree. But then in the indoor season, you run all winter. It was nonstop, and it was a good time. I grew up, learned a lot doing that. My dad, like you said, he won a bunch of races, won a couple championships in class 5 and class 6, and it was a good time.
So, you know, going from the mud racing into the monster truck world, obviously you're doing a lot of probably the NMRO races, a lot of mud races that, you know, have a lot of the monster truck teams at that. So how does that transition from the mud racing? So if you said, you know, it kind of dried up 98, 99, how did the transition to the monster truck world kind of go from that point?
Well, back when I was going to races with my dad, Keith Speller, Mike Speller, who's on the induction list for the Hall of Fame this year, hopefully he makes it. They were actually running shows for United States Hot Rod back then. We did a lot of USA Motorsports shows, kind of crossbred into the Hot Rod when United States Hot Rod bought out USA, I think in 96, 97. Run a lot of hot rod shows and met them guys, and they knew me. I was, you know, you weren't supposed to be in the pits till you're 18. I always had an armband when I was 13, 14. You know, nobody was going to let me go up in the stands by myself. And back then you could, you know, there's some places I couldn't go in the floor. And I'd be sitting up in the stands by myself, surrounded by people I don't know. But, you know, that all kind of, you know, met them, made a lot of connections back then. Hung out with the Bigfoot guys, helped. One of my first memories of working on Monster Truck was they didn't let me do much, but I helped Eric Tack and Eric Meager change the transmission in Hulkster and Lima back in, 96, I think, at a Pender race. You know, I basically held the rags and the brake clean. But, you know, hanging out then and then going from there, mud racing kind of dried up. Once the Penda deal went away for the monster trucks and Tractor Power went away. The TNN kind of went a different direction with their motorsports television. So that kind of dried up. Then I started going to my second passion, which was drag racing. Started going to a lot of drag races, really falling in love with that, trying to figure out what I wanted to do once I graduated high school. I didn't really ever get into NASCAR, never really liked that. But drag racing really appealed to me. So that was my new mission after high school, was do all I could to go drag racing.
So you went from there, and how did you get your foot in the door with NHRA? We had a previous guest, Neil, and he's really good friends with you.
Yep.
But the reaction, how did you get yourself from, you know, the schooling and then into the door of the NHRA?
I kind of, after talking to people, found out that drag racing and getting on a team, you didn't have to have so much of the back knowledge. You didn't have to go to, back then, you didn't have to go to a technical school. There really wasn't that many. UTI was just starting out. UNOH was just starting out. It was more getting on a team. They wanted somebody that really didn't know anything. You didn't come in with any bad habits. And I'd been around race cars. I worked at a machine shop. I knew how to redo cylinder heads and everything there throughout my high school career. So really, it was just trying to find a team that was hiring that would take a chance on a 19-year-old kid. And, you know, the whole summer of 2000, 2001, I went to races. I went to Indy and did nothing but stand at ropes and hand out resumes. And I met a guy, the same guy that Neil got hooked up, which was Terry Manzer. I met him through a mutual friend, and we met him in Chicago, and he was willing to give me a shot, and it just happened to be on the car Neil was on. We drove to Reading in 2001. Kind got there, they put me right to work the very first day. You know, I was doing tires, wiping body down, just, you know, really entry level stuff. And it was more of a tryout than it was, you know, a full on job. I just had a job for that weekend, didn't get paid. I got a free ticket, I got a crew shirt, and I got to do what I wanted to do. Once that weekend was over, they invited me back to the next race in Dallas. I was going to drive to Dallas, do that race. That was going to be the last one, but then I was going to go on full time in 2002 with that team. And like you heard from Neil, I never made it to Dallas. They ended up shutting down. So I had to kind of start all over. But as everything was going on, once the season got over, it's like all the teams went back and started opening up their mail of all the times I sent a resume in. And I got 4 calls that December. A couple A-Fuel teams, which would have been great to get my foot in the door. But I was going to go to Bill Reichert's A-Fuel car out of Michigan. And then I got a call from John Smith, who they just signed a big deal with Fram and Prestone for Rhonda Hartman Smith. They called me in early December, wanted to see if I wanted to come to work for them. So we drove down to South Carolina, Williamston, had a job interview, talked to them, got a tour of the shop, accepted the deal, went home, got my stuff, and started there January 1st, 2002 is where I got my start.
So how was that, you know, being in the NHRA? Because, you know, at that point, I'm a lifelong NHRA fan as well. Like, I remember growing up watching, you know, American Sports Cavalcade in the 90s and just how epic everything was. And in you know, the 2000s, you know, in NHRA, that was an interesting time because lots of rule changes started to happen. You know, I believe the percentage of nitro, you know, switched I think to 90% in that around that time. And how is that, you know, and how did that kind of prepare you for the future that you were going to have, you know, a couple years later in monster trucks?
You know, I compare. Rhonda was great to me. Virgil, her father, was a team motor. He was a tuner. All that whole family was great to me. They really took a 19-year-old kid in. I lived in the house behind the shop. They trusted me to take over. You know, I drove their personal motor home up and down the road. It really was. I look at it as you had the John Force team, which would be like Feld is right now. And then you had us on that team. We didn't have 10 crew guys. We had 4 per car. And now you won't find a team right now full time that's less than 6 people. Mm-hmm. You had to learn how to do multiple jobs. And that really, really groomed me for, you know, getting something better. And we didn't have a lot. You know, we had all the parts we needed, but we weren't making big time salaries. We didn't have the nicest hotel rooms. We didn't have the greatest catering all the time, but it really got you into really learning how to appreciate what you do have. And I think that helped me coming in because monster trucks aren't like NHRA. You just don't go buy brand new pieces every day.
No.
You don't just, when you change a part out, you're not putting a brand new one on every single time. You got to prep that part. You got to fix what you have and make it last. So that really helped me going in when I started with Dennis, that being able to take that kind of mentality, that race team mentality. You know, I remember there'd be 4 of us and watching big teams. Nobody ever shined their trailer when they showed up. They showed up to race. They weren't there for a car show. We got there, we were there for a car show because we knew we couldn't go out. We couldn't afford the big high-dollar tuner to run the car. We had to go out. Virgil did a great job. You know, we were a top 10 team. Top 5, maybe hit or miss every now and then, but we were a top 10 team. We could consistently maybe get out a second round every now and then, get a semifinal. The only regret I have is I never got to win a Wally. I never got to do that in the 3 years I was there. We come close a couple times, but we were there to please the sponsors and make sure they looked good. They were happy with the performance. They didn't care about winning every single race. And that really brought me into what I did with Dennis's truck was, you know, it got wrecked every week, but it looked like a show car every time we showed up the next week.
Now, also with that, you know how most of What was your position with that top fuel team? Like, I know I'm still catching up on positions and stuff like work on the top end, bottom end. You had to do everything compared to like a Don Schumacher or a John Force team.
Yeah, we had 4 guys on each car. We ran 2 cars. So that, we had 8 people with basically two full-time teams, where they have that on one car now. So we had to all do multiple jobs. And the first year I did cylinder heads for both cars. And then I worked on Rhonda's car when it was time for maintenance and pulled the right cylinder head off. And as people shuffle around, people move on. That's the big thing about drag racing. It's really hard to, especially back then, there was so many teams. There was 25 cars showing up, full-time cars showing up to every single race. And there was a lot of opportunities for movement. We had a lot of turnover. And a lot of teams did back then, because it was almost, you get aggravated one time, you just pack up your stuff and go to a different team. So it was really hard. And to get the unity and keep the same people, you had to pay a lot of money. And if you paid them well, they stayed no matter what happened. So you had to learn lots of jobs, because you never knew when the next guy was going to leave. And I ended up doing cylinder heads the whole time I was there, all 3 years. I really enjoyed that, the technical aspect of it, making sure that, because, if you have an intake valve that's wrong, you will grenade the whole engine and blow the crankshaft right out the bottom of it. I'm sure you've seen it on TV before. Yep. Doing that, the last year I moved into doing the cylinder heads and blowers. We actually got 6 people the last year I was there. About halfway through the year, the frame deal was going to a different team the next year. So the money kind of dried up. People saw the writing on the wall. People started bailing early. U.S. Nationals, we lost 2 guys on that weekend. So we had to everybody kind of did 3 or 4 jobs now to get through the rest of the year. But it really grew me for all the work that we were going to have to do once I started doing Monster Jam.
So like with the NHRA stuff, you had your duties in the pits, but when it came to race time, did you help out in the total run of the car, like because I know you see a lot of this today, the guys wiping the tires off and stuff like that. Did you have, what kind of duties did you have in that kind of aspect?
The first year I wiped the tires off, which was a great job. They use gloves now. Back then we had this little broom thing and it had sharp bristles on it, and I cut my hands all the time. But the second year I drove the van, and the third year I actually got to start the car, back up from the burnout, turn the idle adjustment, look over at the other crew chief, send her into the beams. I did that my last year, so that was pretty cool. Back in them days, Alan Johnson was the man. And I know I was listening to Neil, and he said he got to look over to Austin Coyle. I got to look over to Alan Johnson a couple of times, and it's a cool feeling to kind of give him the nod and let him know you're ready to go.
Well, in that era, Tony Schumacher and Alan Johnson were an unbeatable combo, man. You couldn't touch those two.
Back, it was them and Larry Dixon. And, my first year, Schumacher struggled. Larry Dixon was the man. No matter what you could do, you could not beat Larry Dixon.
Who do you have at the time? Did you have
Dick LaHaye?
Yeah, Dick LaHaye.
Yeah. They, I think they won the championship in 2002 and 3, I believe. Yeah. And then once Alan Johnson hooked up with Tony Schumacher, they just went on a tear. Mm-hmm. I think they won 5 or 6 in a row. But yeah, we couldn't compete with that back in them days. We could make if the conditions were good, we could go out and run a low 50. I know we did it a couple times in Chicago, but them were mine shaft conditions that nobody would ever see before. When everybody else was running mid 40s, we're running low 50s. We were happy, because that'll win a lot of races come race days. So it was a good time. We finished in the top 10 every year. Met a lot of cool people. Had a great time. Still have friends to this day that come from NHRA.
And so how did the bug come back, and how did you get transferred over to going to North Carolina? What's the story behind that, switching from that, NHRA to now later on, being the crew chief of the flagship Gravedigger truck?
Yeah, it actually goes back to Mike Speller. I said earlier, from doing the indoor shows with my dad, Mike Speller, who is Keith Speller's father, was running John Force's merchandise trailer on the NHRA, and I'd see him every week, and we'd talk, and he'd ask me how my dad was, and I'd see him. When I drove their motorhome for the Hartmans, the motorhome hauled their t-shirt trailer. So we'd always show up early. We'd cook out. Mike, the t-shirt trailers always had to be there a day or two before the rig. So I'd hang out with Mike. And, middle of 03, I was getting kind of burnt out. We were having some turnover. Really was not having any fun with where I was at and really looking at other teams. I thought about going back to work. I was talking to Tim Wilkerson because his shop in Illinois is really only about 45 minutes from my parents' house. I could go back home, really start enjoying life. Like Neil said, you get out on that road, all your friends are out having fun, and you're stuck at a racetrack 250 days a year. So I started talking to Mike, and Mike's like, hey, Monster Jam's hiring. They're looking for crew guys. And this was back in 02, 03. They were really building their fleet huge at that time, building more and more company trucks. So I talked to Keith in St. Louis in 03, and we talked a little bit, and it sounded fun. And then end of 03, I was committed to finishing the year out. I wasn't going to bail halfway from Hartman's, but they signed a better deal with Fram. The money got a little bit better. We hired some more people. We got some new parts we were going to go in 04 and just really try to set the world on fire. So everything that I'd been wanting, we got in 04. So I didn't do the Monster Jam thing then, but then once our sponsorship kind of ended, I ran into Keith again at Indy in 04 at the U.S. Nationals. He had Mike Wales with him. Keith introduced me to Mike. We got to talking, and he's like, Mike stood at our pit area, like Saturday or Sunday. Every time we serviced his car, he stayed there the whole time and watched, and we talked, and I brought him in, and we really hit it off well. And he kind of offered me a gig. He's like, hey, if you want to come to work for us, I have an opening on Gravedigger. I'm like, okay. And then, I still followed it, but I didn't know they had 7 trucks, and I wasn't knee deep. I watched the World Finals every year because it was on pay-per-view, but that was it. I wasn't following it every single week. It's just I didn't have time. So I'm like, okay, well, that sounds good. And went to Chicago for the NHRA race, went to the Monster Jam offices, met with Mike, filled out all the paperwork, accepted the job. They were lucky enough to let me finish. I accepted the job in early October, and they were nice enough to go, hey, they let me finish the year out with Hartman's. So I finished it all the way through Pomona, and the minute Pomona was over, we loaded up the rig in Pomona, left Sunday night after the race, and got home Tuesday back to South Carolina. And Wednesday morning, I was headed to Poplar Branch, North Carolina, to start working on Gravedigger.
So you accept the job, and you move up to Poplar Branch, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna work on a Gravedigger truck. When did it like you're? I'm trying to think of the words. When did you realize you're working on like the flagship truck, Dennis's truck? Like, did you think, it's just going to be, just another Gravedigger truck, or, what was that kind of moment?
I kind of thought that going in, but then, we were out in Las Vegas for the race at the end of October at the same time as the SEMA show. And I had to finish up some work, some paperwork for Mike, and Henry Cross called me and is like, hey, Mike's out in Vegas. You guys ought to hook up. So I called Mike and we met up at the SEMA show, and he's like, hey, I'm going to put you with Dennis Anderson. I'm like, okay. And I knew Dennis from back in the day when my dad raced. I didn't know him personally. I knew who he was. So I ended up, Dennis was there, and Mike went over and introduced me to him. And, our first conversation was, you got your CDL? I said, yes, sir. And he said, all right, let's get over to work. That was it. That was me and Dennis's conversation the first time. So I knew before I got to the shop that I was going to go work for Dennis. He actually gave me my first apartment in North Carolina. Well, I rented it from him. But Cheech has been to the shop there, the old barn out behind the house. There's an apartment on top of it. Me and Chad Tingler lived in there for 2 years. So rented an apartment from Dennis, did my laundry in Dennis's house. Right off the bat, it was great from day one.
And then the transition from, I think so you started working with him, in 05, 06?
November of 04 is when I started with Dennis. Yeah.
So you guys did a lot of, it just seemed like when what you were doing was hit the ground running. because in that time period, Dennis went from not one but two different trucks until he got into your baby girl number 20.
Yeah.
And how was that transition from that? Because even though they're all grade diggers, they were all different trucks technically.
Yep. We started out with GD19, and when I come in, they were still in the. If you remember when that truck first came out, they had a different shock package on it every single week. They had coilovers on it. They had gas shocks. They had coilovers in the back and gas in the front, and they were still really experimenting with GD19. That's kind of when I come in that we were still doing that. Larry Flood, who was Dennis's crew chief when he won his first racing championship in 2004, he'd retired, kind of come off the road, became like the shop foreman at the shop. He's kind of burnt out, and being with Dennis will do that to you. A lot of people won't make it more than a year. But he was retiring. Somebody else was taking over the crew chief role. I come in as like the second, like the technician, the second guy. And, really just had to spend the first couple weeks at the shop to really just learning what I was getting ready to do. I knew how to rebuild cylinder heads. I knew how to rebuild a 500 cubic inch Hemi in a drag car. But I had no idea what I was getting into with this monster truck thing. I kind of thought it would be like working on my dad's mud car. You go to a show, you come back, you wash it, you polish it up, you fix what's broke, and go on to the next one. No, that was way, way beyond what I thought we were going to be doing. Larry had a great maintenance program on Dennis's truck. When I moved in there, where they would tear third members out every single week. And Cheech knows a lot of teams don't do it every single week. They might do it once a month. We did it every single week. We'd go back to shop every week, no matter where we were at. And it was really a 90% more than I thought it was going to be.
So, you start, and you guys are working on Digger 19, trying to get that truck kind of hammered out, and, I remember watching in that era, one, like you're exactly right. 1 week it'd have coils on it, 1 week it'd have gas shocks. And it just never seemed that Dennis could get comfortable in that truck, until, you guys built Digger 20,
Yeah. And they were planning on, I want to say Digger 20 was probably in the works when I started. It hadn't been started yet, but they were making some design changes off of 19. And really 19 was if you look at all the trucks now, the way the cradles are built, where the motor location is, a lot of the fleet-felled Monster Jam trucks are based off of GD19 from way back in 2004. Obviously, a lot of upgrade changes by now, but started looking at GD20, and GD19 was a good truck. It was just, I think we messed with it too much my first year. During that summer of 2005, they started hammering out GD20. The goal was to get it done for SEMA show in the end of 2005. And with 20, because of all the shock changes on GD19, it was so extensive to be able to just unbolt coilovers and put gas shocks on. So our thought process was, well, let's build a truck that we can easily change shocks on. And we might even go from changing shocks from racing to freestyle. Because Dennis loved freestyling the coilovers, but he hated racing them because they were so squirrely. Because the stance was so high, you had to have your ride height so high to make them work. So we had bolt-on shock brackets that we tried working with it. And this thing was beautiful when we took it to SEMA show, and then we rolled out with GD20, and then that thing never stopped for 7 or 8 years, I think. I think they finally retired it in 2013 or 2014, but that thing was a tank.
Mm-hmm. And I think was really in the I always say the Monster Jam era. I think that truck was like the most successful truck. Yeah. Even with all the fleet, it was just your guys' winning seasons, you guys winning a few championships, and the huge target on your back, and the pressure of having that truck dialed in. And when it's on the rails, I understand, obviously, because I worked with you, the pressure of every weekend, getting that truck all nice and shiny, all car show like, But at the end of the day, you have to go to your nearest Kroger's and get some baskets because you're putting all the pieces back there before you have to rebuild it. But still, the pressure for you as the crew chief for number 20, and you have racing, you have performance, you have every part, racing, freestyle, the performance era. How did you handle a lot of that pressure? Because, everyone, all of the fans, 80,000 fans in Tampa Stadium is just assuming that you're going to win that night.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
You don't know, dude. The only thing that made all of that even remotely enjoyable was Dennis himself. The pressure was nonstop because the first time I ever went to a show, I got it. It was a monster truck show. I didn't know how much at that time Dennis meant to every single person in that building. And at that time, how many people came just to see him. He wasn't working on the truck. When it was time to go, he was driving it, and it better go. There was no in between. There was no, shucks, sorry.
Somebody's showing off.
Fast and the Furious.
Neighbors doing burnouts. There was no, shucks, we'll fix it and do it again next week. No, has to be 100% no matter what. And there was a lot of pressure there. And when the truck would break for racing, I had no choice. It had to come back for freestyle. The only time it wouldn't come back is, I think one show in Detroit we blew a motor in intros. And back then there was no changing an engine during the show like we can do now. I think that was the first time we ever missed a freestyle run that we literally did not compete whatsoever. But so there was a lot of pressure there, but Dennis made it easier because he lived at the shop. His house was right next door. If I'd be in the shop working till 9 or 10 o'clock, he would bring dinner over, and then he wasn't working on the truck himself, but just him being there, him wanting to be actively involved in the team, wanting to know every single thing we did to that truck, top and bottom. Just him wanting to be involved made it so much easier and made it a lot of fun. Just being able to work side by side with him.
And that's one thing that, watching, the Speed Channel stuff, how you and him interacted with each other. It's almost like, a brotherhood between you guys. It's like it's a bond that you guys have, throughout those years were able to, have with each other. And, just the camaraderie between you guys was always like there. And that explains it right there. You work in the shop late night, brings over dinner.
Yep.
You guys had each other's backs, which, you don't like, you see that with some crew guys and drivers, but like not as much as like you and Dennis.
Yeah. We went, I think I was with him for 8 years. We never once had a fight about the truck. I stood behind him 110% because I wasn't driving it. That was him. He had the knowledge of driving it. I trusted him to drive it, and he trusted me to work on it. And it really made the relationship great. We wouldn't back. If he rolled over early, I didn't get mad. If the truck would break early, he didn't get mad. He would get mad because he couldn't please his fans. But we'd pick up the pieces and we'd move on. We never had an argument ever. And you can't even say that now about some teams. And yeah, everybody's friends now and everybody gets along. And, a lot of drivers, their friends or their crew chiefs, and they still have arguments. We never had an argument in the 8.5, 9 years I was with him. And that made it a lot of fun and made it really enjoyable.
And I got a feeling a lot of times
it got bright.
Right. I got a feeling there's a lot of times that you two
I'm
talk.
turn the slide off.
Okay.
Oh, wrong one. There we go. Sorry.
There was probably got a feeling a lot of times where you and Dennis talked about setups and stuff like that. Like I found out, Vegas, the World Finals is a completely different show than you would say Energy Stadium or Ford Field. What we normally do. When it comes to Vegas, it's different setups, different things in general. The question is during your seasons, did you guys had a different setup for Vegas compared to other show, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of people, I mean, Howie Dalton, me and Howie would argue over our setup. He said it didn't work, it wouldn't work. But I think our track record of what we used to do at World Finals, we would have the maintenance program was the same from show one, where we were going to Anaheim or going to Vegas. Maintenance was the same. How we set the truck up, yes, was totally different. And back then, when it was all in one night, racing and freestyle, it was really hard. Thank God he would go out late and freestyle, because there was a lot of stuff to change over. Because if you tried to freestyle the truck that we had set up for racing, it wouldn't make it very long. We had the shocks limited down, the way the steering toe was, the gearing. There's a lot of things we changed. But once we got that baseline, and it really started with Larry Flood in 2004 when they won the championship, it really started there. And rolling into 05, we had the same setup, same truck. Rolling into 06, even though we had GD20, we put the same setup in it. We have literally the same setup every year that I was with him, that we went to World Finals. And it proved itself out. It worked really well. We went to the finals, 4 years in a row, I think. Won 2 of them. But that set up the changes we would make every year, and we would spend weeks. Back then, you would have 2 weeks before World Finals, and we would go back to the shop no matter where we were at and thrash at the shop until the last minute and roll into Vegas ready to go, do practice, make some subtle tweaks after practice, but go out and knowing we would always know what we had when we got there. And usually if we had a problem, it was mechanical breakage, which you can't control.
So the 2007 season was kind of an interesting season. Dennis gets hurt, and it's the 25th anniversary. And so all of a sudden you have Adam stepping into the seat of Digger 20. How was that experience, having, you're so used to working with Dennis and you guys, are attached at the hip. All of a sudden he can't drive. Adam fills in. How was that experience? And Adam at that point, he was I believe he was driving Taz, and
yep.
How was that for him, having to step in the shoes of his dad's truck, and kind of, that whole situation in your perspective?
Yeah, it was, we were gearing up big time for that year. I remember at the end of 06, I went to Europe and did some of the Europe shows, actually crewing for Tom on Max D. And I remember getting home and Dennis being, kind of upset that I wasn't home working on his baby. But we were gearing up big time for the 07 season with the anniversary and going to Minneapolis, and how that all went down with Dennis getting hurt. It really kind of bummed me out. I didn't know what we were going to do. I knew he was going to be out for a little bit. Didn't know how long. I kind of thought, okay, well, they're going to give me another driver. We're going to go do some stuff. I didn't think we'd keep our same schedule. And then once we got, that was mid-December when he got hurt. So they didn't have much time. So then we got home. Dennis said, hey, they're going to put Adam in the truck. I'm like, sweet. We'd actually just lost our other crew guy that was working with me then. So Adam said, hey, I'm going to drive the truck. He jumped in the rig. It was me and Adam up and down the road for that 10-week stretch right there. And it was a lot of fun. I will say that was probably the most fun I've ever had on tour, was with Adam. The stuff we did, just the times we would just look at each other and start laughing. In the middle of Texas, driving down the interstate, I would just look over and just start laughing. And we would laugh for hours over nothing. The wind could blow the wrong direction and we were laughing. It was just a really fun time. And it took a lot of the pressure off, because Adam was more laid back than Dennis. He knew what equipment we had. He knew he had the pressure of winning. He had to go out there, and Dennis was still there. Just because he was injured didn't mean he was sitting at home on the couch. He was there every single week as like a backstage coach, and he was teaching Adam. That was Adam's, I believe, second or third full-time year driving. But Adam, he was just laid back. We just had fun. He would go out, but Adam would drive the truck really, really hard but not tear anything up. There was a couple shows that he would win racing and freestyle, and we'd load it up and go on to the next show, change oil. Adam taught me how to be more laid back. My first year I went through 3 crew guys were gone. They were gone. One of them was Mark Cole, and we're good friends now. We still talk, but back then we weren't. Adam taught me how to, just be more laid back and enjoy the moment, and not overthink it too much. I credit Adam for a lot of stuff that I learned in life. Was that year driving up and down the road.
So continue on the timeline here. After your scenario with the Gravedigger and stuff like that, what got you the itch to go behind the wheel of the truck? How that story happened?
I always wanted to drive. Everybody wants to drive when they're a kid. I wanted to drive a monster truck when I was a kid, but when I first started, that was. And Mike had told me, hey, sometimes people accrue for a year or two and end up driving. Back then, that was the step in, was go be a crew guy. If you had that, then you'd end up being a driver. It wasn't so much of how it is now. And that was my goal. And then when I got with Dennis, I'm thinking, okay, year or two, we'll do that. This driver thing might come or might not. So once I got with him, he told me after the first year or two, he told me, you want to drive? I said, yeah, I'd love to drive. Nope, never going to happen. When I retire, you can drive. I'm like, oh, this guy's 44 years old. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. So I just kind of accepted it. Hey, I might never drive. So I went to Europe in 2009, and George Bellham was driving backwards Bob. He had an injury. There was 2 shows on a Saturday. Mike Wales walked up and goes, hey, I'm going to put you in that truck. I'm like, okay. And I had jumped a truck in a field one time. And if you remember Courtney Jolly, it was her truck with her seat. And I was a little bit skinnier back then. I could fit, but it was a very uncomfortable. I didn't even enjoy it. I'm like, yeah, this is dumb. I don't know why I want to do this. But 2009, I started driving. I finished that weekend out in Arnhem, and then just got the bug, knowing that, hey, Dennis ain't gonna let me go. So gave me that fire that I lasted, I think, 3 years staying with Dennis. 3 or 4 more years I stayed until I finally was like, you know what? And I'd filled in some more. Mike Wales was really good to me. He gave me a lot of stuff in my life. And he would look out for me. Every now and then somebody would get hurt or they need a fill in. He would call me up and I'd fill in. I think I did 2 or 3 shows in 2011. I did a couple in Europe. He was really, really good to me. But end of 2011, 2012, I started doing some more shows, in other trucks, still working for Dennis. But he wasn't going every single weekend, and there was a lot of downtime there throughout the summer. Started doing more shows, and in 2012, we got geared up for the big 30th anniversary. It was the 30th. Was that 2012?
Mm-hmm.
I had a great year. Really did. Got to Vegas, and it just went downhill quick. We had a horrible World Finals. I had another crew guy with me, Daniel Crawford, who used to work. He was with Dennis, and then he went on to work with the Rodozer team. He was doing really good. Him and Dennis were getting along, and I saw my out. We had a horrible World Finals. Daniel was doing great, and I talked to Mike Wales right there on Saturday night World Finals, said, hey, I want to drive. And I got to the point, I was doing so many fill-in shows that I had to make a decision. I'm either going to pursue this full time or I'm going to be done with it. There was emotionally for me, there was no middle ground. I had to see if I could do it full time or not. So I talked to Mike, and he's like, yep, we'll see what we can do. So I basically resigned from Team Gravedigger at the World Finals on Saturday night with my bosses. I hadn't told Dennis yet. So we got back to the shop. I talked to Dennis. Me and him drove around the property in his pickup truck. I told him, hey, this is my goal. And I wasn't getting any younger. I think I was 30 years old at the time. That was my goal. And he's full on supported me 110%. So I spent the summer with them as like a technical advisor. Daniel Crawford took over. I kind of helped him handpick Tyson Swinhart to go with Dennis, and I just spent the summer with them teaching and showing them the ropes on how to keep Dennis happy. You keep him happy, there's nobody that can beat him. I still say that today. You get him in a truck that he's comfortable in, nobody can beat him, racing or freestyle. But yeah, I got the green light from Dennis, and it was game on. And at that point, it was just waiting for Monster Jam to find a truck for me to fit in.
And then I do like still, was it on the back of your head though, a little bit of another pressure again to keep Dennis happy with this new crew guy Dan that can take care of Dennis? Was that thought always in the back of your head, even though you were driving like Iron Man and you're doing your own thing for a little bit?
Yeah, and even though when I got my first truck, Dennis never had a teammate ever. Till 2013, he got a brand new trailer, and guess who his teammate was?
You.
Yeah. So, even though I was there, I was competing against him. I still looked in on them guys. They were working on Gravedigger, and I was the crew guy driver on Wolverine. We were all one big team, and Dennis helped me a lot that year driving. More so than he probably even thinks. Just his little subtle comments every now and then be like, "Oh, hey, that makes sense." But yeah, I always had a soft spot in my heart for GD20. They retired it that year, come out with GD30, I think. That was Crawford's first truck. But yeah, up until he retired, I always had a spot for Dennis. We joked back in 2017 at World Finals after he got injured and he was out. We joked, hey, at that point, GD20 was sitting in mothballs out in the weeds behind the shop. So you powder coat it and put some new bars in it, we could put it back together. And we were joking like, hey, we're going to get you healed up. Let's put the band back together and let's go give it one more run. That would have been great to go with him on a retirement year. But, move on to driving and had fun with that.
Well, we're talking about his driving career there, Brad.
Okay.
We're in the section of the timeline where he's behind the wheel of Wolverine and became basically Dennis's first teammate truck with him, and go from there. I'll ask this one also. So, what was the idea of how you got into the monster mutt nostalgia? Like the last few trucks that you drove were a monster mutt or a offset of monster mutt. Yeah. I guess. Did they have a seat? Was that their game plan to put you in monster mutt, or was there another idea for you?
I'm not sure. I drove Wolverine the first year. Then I moved into Iron Man. I drove a lot of trucks over the first 2 years, different trucks. I did an Encore in East Rutherford Superman on a whim. Drove El Toro Loco that summer. It was just a lot of different stuff. And I was getting to that point, I was starting to see the writing on the wall. Okay, I'm never going to have my own little identity here. I'm just going to be the guy that keeps floating from truck to truck. And I was happy with that. Don't get me wrong. I was doing what I wanted to do. I got to work on the truck. I got to drive it. I got to drive the rig up and down the road. I got everything I wanted. Drove Iron Man. That was fun. Body was way too expensive for me to be driving it. I went through a lot of bodies. And then, starting in 2015, they started that was the first year of the FS1 tour. Got the call, hey, you're going to drive Monster Mutt now. I'm like, sweet. Different truck, different year. They're putting me on this TV points tour, which was a great honor. There's only, I think we had 16 trucks on that tour, 14 trucks. There was only 8 company drivers on that tour. So be one of them that was going to be on TV every single week, fighting for a points championship for the first time since I don't think they had a points championship or a points series since back in the Monster War days, which was 92, 93 at that point. It was just an honor. And then Monster Mutt has a long history, you know, that come out 02, 03. A lot of different drivers. Bobby Z drove that thing many years, did a great job. Brian Winston. Mike Wine drove it for a couple years. Whit Tarleton drove it for a couple years. And it was about the time Whit got out. You know, Whit moved on. Was the time I actually got Whit's old truck was my first one. So we got that stuff back in Florida, put my seat in it, and rolled on to Houston.
So, you know, you started driving Monster Mutt, and then how did the whole identity for the switch to the Junkyard Dog identity come about? Because, you know, I believe Junkyard Dog was the last Monster Mutt truck to have the kind of original body style.
Yep.
Because I think at that time they started doing the kind of more 3D-ish kind of aggressive body. And that's one thing I love the Junkyard Dog, because it just looked old school.
Yeah, they moved in with they started getting the 3D bodies. I think it was 2015. Rod Schmidt had the first one with Rottweiler. And then the Dalmatian team and the regular Monster Mutt team started. But Junkyard Dog, funny, that started back in, probably 2015 at World Finals.
Oh, with the old hood.
Yeah, so were you there, Cheech?
Yeah.
Were you with us that year?
No, I mean, I was with Cole and
you were with Adam.
Yes, I was with Adam, but you had
had Fiegel and Scott
Scott and Tyson.
I was paired up with Chucky.
Yes, and I remember helping them put the hood on your truck during practice, and everyone's like, "That's freaking cool."
Yeah, we were practicing, and I'd been down that track with Wolverine at the Young Gun Shootout, but there was a big difference in tracks. You know, it got a lot faster from 2013 to 2015. It just seemed like it was getting faster every year. So I wanted, and we had a good year in 2015. You know, we finished third on that point series. I don't think anybody thought I was going to come out of there with one of the 4 spots. Won a couple freestyles. So we had a great year going into Vegas, and I just really wanted to do the best I could there. And we didn't have a body. We had a brand new body for the show, so they wouldn't let me use that for practice. So I went back to the old body shop at the back of the parking lot and found a Dalmatian hood that they said I could have. I found an old Dalmatian body that was broke. They were going to throw it away, so we cut the back half of it off and just put a cab on my truck. But then Mike Wales come over and told me I couldn't run it white. I had to paint it. So I just found the crappiest brown paint I could find and left the spots on it, paint everything white, this junk looking brown. And he said he was good with it for me to practice, because back then they were filming it for Facebook and they wanted everything to be legit. You know, they didn't want some fan asking why Dustin was driving a Dalmatian body. And come to find out, somebody and the right person saw that and loved it. You know, loved that trashy junk look. And that summer, you know, we started having conversations like, hey, let's make this a truck. They were moving all the 3D bodies to the other mutts, and we had all these Mercury bodies laying around that were already painted for the brown mutt. So it was so easier to just take them brown bodies, take a DA sander to them, and go to town, and then put a sticker on it. I love that truck. I hated it. It only made it 4 months. You know, it went away. But the kids would love it. You know, it was something different. But I would agree, there was getting too many of the same truck. You know, if that one was going to stick around, something else was going to have to go. So I didn't have any merch. I wasn't selling any T-shirts. So guess what?
Yeah, I have to say that it was funny. The Junkyard Dog. If there was like the Big Lebowski of the Monster Jam world, it would have been the Junkyard Dog. You had a huge like cult following, just following that truck. And I remember at St. Louis, 2016, you didn't roll over. You roll over in every single event 3 times on that thing, but the crowd loved you for it. And they were I remember we were in the pits and people were booing even when you and Evolution rolled over during qualifying.
Yeah.
the people were insane. That you had a following going on with that truck.
Yeah, and you were there, you were at the shop when we were building it.
Yeah.
We're taking brand new rims, mounting tires on them, sticking them out in the Florida heat for months to let them rust.
Yeah, I remember Fitchett taking the beadlocks and wadding them down, and then taking them to some place back in where the trailers are at, just to get the rusted beadlock look on it.
Yeah, Fitchett loved it because if you swapped a housing out, we didn't paint anything. Everything was raw on that truck. If it got 4-link bar, it was raw metal. The more rusted it looked, the better. And that body, Fitchett loved it because all he had to do was bolt the body on. He didn't have to repair it. That thing, I will say, we started the year with a brand new body. And the last time I drove that truck was in Ocala at the end of April. Had the same original body on it that we started with. And it rolled over a lot. I had a horrible year that year, wrecking 2 or 3 times a show. But usually the bodies, you can set them on the ground, they'll hold themselves up. We took that body off at World Finals, and it laid completely flat on the ground like a pancake. There was no structure to it whatsoever.
But I have to say, Atlanta, though, you won off the bat, which was pretty cool.
I had a different truck, or brand new truck name, Junkyard Dog, different chassis. Every year I drove a different chassis. Never had the same one. But the newer chassis, new crew chief with John Fitchett, who is now the crew chief with Camden Murphy, the Bakugan. He wasn't just starting. I think that was his second or third year, and he went with him, and we started out great. We went to Atlanta, took out Damon in the semis, beat Tom in the finals, and thought, okay, we're going to pick up where we left off in 2015, and it just went downhill from there. I was trying some different stuff.
Come on, Frontier.
Illinois internet.
Hey, I got that good Canadian internet.
Nice.
I think he might be gone. I don't know what happened. He might show up at this phone, but continue on.
Yeah, we started the year off strong in Atlanta, one racing, and then it just went downhill from there. I was trying a different neck restraint device and just was never, ever comfortable in that chassis. And it showed, I had no need to be on that TV tour. I was not setting the world on fire whatsoever that year. Like Chief said, rolled over 3 times in St. Louis. Won a donut competition and didn't even make a revolution. I won by default because it was so tacky they canceled the rest of it. So, it was a fun year, but I didn't do good. Fitchett made it fun. My kids, they were getting to that age. My oldest was getting that age. He was really digging the monster truck stuff and being able to know his dad drives a Monster Jam truck. My youngest was just born. So outside of the truck, life was good. Inside the truck, not so much. And at the end of April, that was the end of my my full-time gig as a driver. Junkyard Dog went away, and that's about it.
So I wanted to ask this. We've had Cody Saucier on and some other drivers that were starting out as crew guys. Do you think somebody starting out as a crew guy and transitioning into a driver role, do you think that's a better way to get into the seat than somebody just getting, just starting right off by driving? Do you think having some knowledge about the truck, how the truck operates, working on it, wrenching on it, makes them a better driver?
I think it helps. A lot of the athletes that are coming in now have backgrounds in other forms of motorsports, and the talent level coming in now it's off the hook. There's things these athletes are doing in these trucks now are just unbelievable. And some of them have never driven anything in the world. Tyler, look at Tyler. Look at what Tyler does. And knowing that, yeah, he drove some other stuff, but he never worked on it. You don't have to. Back in the day, you had to work on the truck because you were your own crew guy. Now, with the way these teams are built now, there's multiple guys on each truck, and it helps having that knowledge mechanically so you can kind of point your crew guy in the right direction. If you feel this, hey, go look here. that's the hardest part now. I think some of the crew guys have challenges with, because their driver will come back and say, "Hey, I got a vibration." Okay, where's it at? Oh, I don't know. It's just vibrating. So having that knowledge, but I don't think you have to have it. I don't think it needs to be a prerequisite moving forward. No.
So we got a few questions for you there, Dustin.
Oh,
and
boy.
Yeah, well, your friend, you may know this guy, Austin Spence. This is what have you been up to since the virus broke out?
Just hanging out. Hanging out in Florida. My family went to Texas right at the start of the virus for spring break, and turned into spring eternity. They ended up being gone from March until Memorial Day. Just kind of hung out at the house. Like I was telling Cheech earlier, got Farming Simulator and knocking that out.
You said you got like 400 hours in that thing.
And you also lost your money.
Yeah. But doing a lot of house projects, hog hunting down here in Florida. Having a good time, enjoying it, enjoying the kids, being dad, hanging out with my wife. We're getting ready to go on a trip next week to Tennessee. It's my dad's 60th birthday, so we're going to go ride side-by-sides in the mountains for a couple days and come back and start being dad and taking the kids to school every day and making lunches.
Well, so I just want to give a shout-out here. CVH was in the chat earlier. Says, yo.
Carl Van Horn.
Little CVH. And we also had another crew guy, crew chief, former crew chief of Medusa, Michael Osborne, in here.
Nice, Ozzy.
Ozzy's in here.
Nice. What's up, Ozzy?
So I wanted to ask this, wrestling stuff. You and Cheech have been to WrestleMania. I'm a wrestling
awesome.
I'm a wrestling nerd. How was that experience? Because you've probably been in that stadium times for doing Monster Jam stuff, but how was it in that kind of environment, and how was it bringing a little 5-year-old midget with you? Just kidding, love you, Cheech.
Going back, and Cheech was there. It almost didn't even happen. We were going with Shane Preed, and he had an emergency, couldn't come. The tickets were in will call in his name, and we're on our way to Orlando. Like, okay, I can't go to will call and tell him I'm Shane and get the tickets. So luckily, I had some connections through Monster Jam that, I called our promoter that works in Orlando, like, hey, you got to help me out here. I got tickets sitting at will call and I can't get to them. So we got that taken care of, and me and Cheech, I think Cheech was more excited than I was.
He was
YouTubing Macho Man Randy Savage interviews and playing them with my truck on the way there. He was ate up with it.
It's a Macho Man, yeah.
What I call you like the day before?
Yeah. So what are you doing? Nothing. Going West Virginia? Yep. Okay.
Well, you guys got to see
it was like that, but it was like that in Florida all the time, Dustin. It was like we can call everyone. It's like, what are you doing? Just chilling. Come over. Get on the boat. Let's go fishing. All right.
But I've been to a lot of concerts, and I have never seen a spectacle and the production value of what that was for that long. You go to a concert in a stadium, they got a lot of production, a lot of lights, it's great, but it's only an hour and a half long. We got there at 5:00 and it did not end until 12:30, and it was not a lag.
4 a.m, I think, right?
Yeah. But the production value from start to finish, you see it on TV and it looks really cool, but it's nothing like living it live. It was off the hook. I enjoyed it.
Especially that Hardy Boys pop.
I was going to mention that because I remember exactly where it was. I was in Calgary visiting family, and me and my brother were both watching it. And when that happened, my mom thought me and my brother started fighting because of that. We were so loud. Like, how loud was that reaction in that arena as soon as that happened?
I was in the concession line getting a beverage, and I thought something weird. I thought something just very, very weird and cool just happened because that place erupted I have never heard that many people screaming in my life.
You were getting apple juice.
Yeah, no, it was water. It was hot. I was trying to stay hydrated.
Yeah, it was water, good H2O. And I mean, it was crazy because I mean, beforehand, also, I mean, we went to like a Raw and a SmackDown at the Amalie Oil Center,
Amalie.
and
Yep.
yeah, we also went to see that. But still, I mean, where we live at, where Dustin lives at, it's still like a hotbed for all that wrestling and stuff like that because Orlando and Tampa and stuff. But still, I mean, the atmosphere, even the fans were so crazy. There was fans that dressed up as their favorite wrestlers and they wrestled in the crowd, and people were loving it.
They were having matches in the crowd, like in the big volumes where they didn't have any seats. They were having matches and people were digging it. I mean, it was so great. We got home at 4 a.m. At 7 a.m. I was up watching it on TV from start to finish. Mm-hmm. It was I could not. That was the hype. It was great, you know. And it was the weekend after World Finals. We just got back from World Finals, and it was like the relief we needed to go enjoy something after the season got over.
Well, it's like, you know, very similar to kind of like the World Finals in a sense. Is the diehard of the diehard fans go to that event.
Yeah.
You know, people from all over the world go to WrestleMania, but people from, you know, multiple countries come to the World Finals. It's that same kind of atmosphere at times, in my opinion, because, you know, you have the diehards, you know, the guys that love it the most.
It's a bucket list item for a lot of people, and it was for me. You know, there's nothing. It's hard to get tickets to that. I tried to get tickets to the one they were going to have in Tampa this year, and I was not paying $500 for the upper deck. It wasn't happening. Not when I could watch it at home for $9 on TV. But it's hard to get tickets to them big events like that, and because, like you said, everybody from around the world. I would bet there wouldn't be very many people from Orlando at WrestleMania. Oh, no. It was probably more from outside the country. And the same thing that happened, you know, when we went there for World Finals. It's a worldwide phenomenon.
Right. And for me, I really, outside of the Hardy Boys pop, just seeing the Undertaker's theme just live.
Yep.
When people talk about, you know, how, you know, gives you goosebumps when he's like, you know, doing his thing, and it's like, oh, okay, and not knowing that was going to be technically his last match.
Yeah, I only got to see the Undertaker twice my whole life. Once was at WrestleMania in Orlando, and once was in 97, 98 in St. Louis at the Bad Blood Hell in a Cell, the very first one.
No way.
Yeah.
You were there?
Yep.
Dude.
That's the only 2 times I ever got to see the Undertaker.
Dude, that is like one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time, actually. The Bad Blood and Shawn Michaels, where Kane.
Shawn Michaels, Kane come out.
That's gotta be Kane.
But I don't watch it very much now.
Yeah, I don't either.
I still watch it.
I got kind of it's one of the things all the older people left, and
you know, I told Dustin, I was like, it's sad that right now the best rivalry right now is between 2 people in NXT, and one of them don't even wrestle. And that's Adam Cole and Pat McAfee. I think that's the best line right now. I don't think there's anything better. I mean, maybe a close second is Braun Strowman and The Fiend, but outside of that, no, I basically, the easiest way to keep up with everything right now, sad to say, is look at the bits and clips on YouTube. You know, you can catch up on the storyline through YouTube, through WWE, and it's I
watch more old monster truck videos now than I do wrestling.
Okay, speaking of that, what do you watch? If you want to watch some old school stuff, what's your go-to for watching some old school monster truck?
Last month, I watched all the Penda from 91 all the way through 96.
Nice.
Watched
Holy
all that.
Cow.
Again, my wife, I'll watch it while she's watching Hallmark movies, and she makes me put my headphones in. I watched that. Really big into, late 80s, tractor pulling type stuff. There wasn't really much mid-90s on on TV for Monster Jam, but every now and then I'll go back and watch World Finals, what I can find on YouTube. But now with the new, I haven't got it yet. But I'm gonna sign into the YouTube page. That's gonna bring back a lot of memories.
It's worth it. I'm just hoping that the 2003 stuff they can somehow find, because there's a lot of people that are wanting to watch the kind of stuff that was the in between of TNN and Speed Channel. Yeah,
and that's give it time. It'll all be on there. It takes a lot of time to get that stuff digitized and get putting out. But there'll be a lot of stuff on there. I look forward to. My kids ask me all the time, like, "Hey, they just know me as the monster truck driver. They don't know. They know, oh, Daddy worked on Gravedigger, but they don't. I can go back and show them. Hey, look, Daddy used to be 140 pounds and didn't have gray hair, and I take them back and show them, stuff from back in the day, and show them drivers. Like my oldest son, Keegan, he knows Dennis. Dennis was there when he was born at the hospital. So, but he never got to see him drive. I think he saw him once. So be able to take them back and go back, and I look forward to it. I got plenty of time on my hands. I'm gonna go log into it. Might even give up my WWE subscription for the old Monster Jam YouTube page.
I'm thinking about doing the same thing.
I can promise you, Cheech, Dana, I'm gonna have to pick one or the other. I'm not gonna get both.
Yeah. You may get both if you can get her to a Texans game, and then
if I could get her to. Well, now that Brady's in Tampa, she become a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. I don't know why. So.
the Monster Jam YouTube thing is worth it just for the 2000 season alone. Digger 7, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of good stuff on it, and I think it's going to become a really good platform moving forward, because you don't know how this world's going to take off. So I think it's going to be a good thing, and it's what the diehard fans have been wanting. Is it something like that, and it might even bring some of the newer fans to come in and see where Adam Anderson started, and see where Ryan Anderson started, all the watching Tom drive, watch him win his first world championship, now that he's got 13 or 12. But I think it's going to be a great thing. I'm really excited about it.
They need something like that for NHRA stuff. That'd be like my guilty pleasure.
They have the NHRA All Access, but it doesn't have all the.
No,
it has like one race a year on there. It's really
like all the YouTube clips of like certain races are like part 1, part 2, part 3, and I'm like, I just want to sit here and watch Slick 50 Nationals in 1994, Scott Jeffrey versus Warren Johnson burn down.
Yep.
And that's like one of my favorite races of all time.
Yep. I think it's going to be. I look forward to looking at it and checking it out. I'm still a huge fan of Monster Jam.
So Neil said, "Do you want to come back and work for a Wally at the U.S. Nationals?" Kidding, not kidding.
I don't have nothing going on. He was actually gonna get a phone call after I get back from vacation, see if they needed an old fat retired monster truck driver. I got a CDL. I can drive that 3 miles over the track, Neil.
See if you could remember how to rebuild one of those Hemis.
I think I could figure it out pretty quick. I don't think they'd let me do that.
Okay. So speaking of, and because obviously you're a lifelong NHRA fan as well.
Yep.
Favorite announced team?
Marty Reed and Mike Dunn.
Ooh, okay. I will always have to go with Steve Evans and Dan McClelland.
Steve Evans was good on the top end.
Yeah.
Getting that interview at the end. But Marty Reed, Mike Dunn, that's really what I don't like what they have now. Brian Lowe's does good. I think Tony Pedregon's a little too opinionated for some of their shows. But Mike Dunn, he wasn't scared to call somebody out when it was needed. So that was a good pair.
Isn't he going to be one of our guests there?
Yeah, we have Brian Loans actually coming on next week. Actually, yeah.
Nice.
So he's an old school monster truck fan as well. And going to the monster truck side, who did you some of your favorite announcers. Obviously, when you mentioned the Penda series, you had Gary Lee, Army Armstrong, but
Army Armstrong. A lot of people ain't going to remember this one from USA Motorsports. Dave Bennett,
Oh,
the guy with the cowboy hat.
mm-hmm.
He was pretty
Sit
good.
down shorts.
Yep. Always talked about his mother-in-law's garage. Obviously, Scott Douglas. He's the voice.
Army and Scott, I always like.
Army Armstrong, Scott Douglas,
Joe Lowe.
I like Brett Kepner.
Brett Kepner back in the day. Yeah. He's still around there. I think he still does some drag race stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Ken
Nostalgia. He does Nostalgia Funny Car with, remember the guy who drove Buffalo Tremor, John Kwanowski, Johnny K?
Yeah.
Johnny K drives a Nostalgia Funny Car with Brett Kepner as the announcer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Greg Whitaker, he does Bowling Green now.
Crazy dude.
A lot of old school announcers really brought this sport to what it is today, and there's a lot of new ones that are really, really good. Ryan Lacrosse.
Remember Scott Heaton? What was up with every announcer? A very good announcer. I don't know about Army, but everyone else spoke 5 packs a day. Am I the only one that they're good at it?
Yeah, that's what they did, dude. Those, they're all old school. That's what they come back.
Steve Evans smoked like a chimney.
Yeah. Yeah, like what they call them now. They're hosts now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And another good one, Kenny Nowitzki.
Yeah, good guy, great guy. I think he got the raw end of the stick of what happened there, but we won't get into that.
It is what it is.
But them guys had product knowledge. The old school announcers knew what they were announcing, and I think that's I really feel that's a lost art of what you got to know what you're talking about to be able to do it. And I think that's where you look at other forms of motorsports. They bring in NASCAR, brought in Jeff Gordon. They're bringing in Cup drivers for Xfinity races. If you know what you're talking about, you can get it. You can translate that to the fans a lot better. Mm-hmm. And them old school guys got that.
Yeah, I mean, our couple of our last interviewers talked about how Army on the television, it made people do interviews. He also helped people become better in interviews, and I think it also the same thing with Scott Douglas. I think he was at some of the interviews that you had as a crew chief, and then with him, or at shows when Dennis was there. Scott also made it to a point where he would make the people that he's interviewing look just as good as what he's bringing out.
He could save it. I remember doing early interviews with Scott live event, being lost, but he could tell when you were struggling, or getting ready to lose your point, and kind of steer you in the right direction. Scott was great at that too. No matter what you said, he made you look like a star at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Scott, he had that, and Scott, he trained the host now. He was the host trainer. He would come to our summits back in the day, and we'd have interview class. Whether it be drivers, crew guys, everybody gets interviewed now. Everybody needs to go through it. It's a part of the not only working on the truck, but translating and telling the story about how to work on the truck and what you're doing. That technical, back behind the scenes technical aspect of it now is really what these kids are into now with the STEM programs in school. And we always, there's more questions now about behind the scenes stuff and how to actually work on the truck than actually watching it.
So let's do a little bit of fantasy booking here.
Okay.
So let's take you in any truck that you've driven. Let's say Junkyard Dog, for instance. Let's transport you to a year and an opponent. What year would you transport back to, and who would you line up against in that other lane? Who would you look at and be like, I'm going to kick his ass?
I'm going to say, because he got really good at the end of his career, but early Damon Bradshaw.
Okay.
Kind of, 06, 07, whenever he started, really come in. He was, I think, a little bit of a chip on his shoulder coming from Supercross, but he got good really quick. Same thing with Todd Duke. If I could go back and do anything over again, it'd be the semifinals race from World Finals in 2015. I want that one again. Having such a great night, taking out Dennis, Neil, Lindsay. But I'd probably say Damon. Back in that early Air Force days, late 06, early 07, with Junkyard Dog.
Yeah, buddy.
I think the identity trucks really had they were really a big deal, mid 2000s, early 2000s was all about the cartoonish trucks, they call them.
Yeah.
Something that had a character to it. Some of these trucks we have now and even 2008, 2009 would have fit great in the Monster Wars era back in the day. Have a little character with it. But yeah, that mid 2000s, 2007 range is probably a good time.
Yeah. That's another thing you were talking about. Seasons. I just got done watching the whole season of Monster Wars, and if you can change the name to Crusher or the Shaker, you already have a theme person for Earthshaker.
Yep.
It would be the guy from the movie No Holds Bars. What people don't know is the arm wrestler that took on Sylvester Stallone. But it's the always the idea and stuff like that, and we have some hard hitting questions for you.
Here we go.
And we got two of them, and hope you prepared.
And one of them, as soon as the other one, one of the questions, I have an announcement to make about it. So, yeah, I gotta pay up on a bet that was made. So,
oh boy, here we go. I better get a free
right.
T-shirt when this one's over.
With or without holes?
I don't know. Cheech, do you have sleeves? You got sleeveless?
No.
White boy down here in Florida needs to get some sun.
That's Salt Life.
Yeah.
Hashtag. Yeah. Anyway, what's your favorite pie?
Pie?
Yep.
Yes. Not 3.14 PIE.
Apple.
That's number one anyway. So
I'm not a big pie guy.
it's all right.
And that question comes from our buddy Brendan Culpepper Sr. That's been a staple since day one of this thing. 5 years, and it's never gets old.
Does pizza count?
Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Cole
Okay.
Bernard. All right, you would be with Cole Bernard and another person. That'd be 3 people.
Okay.
So,
Papa John's meat lovers.
Okay.
that counts.
I'll ask this though: pineapple, yes or no?
No, that's not. It's pizza. It does not belong in pizza.
Mudslide. Your wife says mudslide. Explain.
Oh, that's something my great grandma made. That she got the recipe from my aunt, and she makes it pretty good. You've probably had it, Cheech.
Under the influence or with the influence?
It's got some chocolate pudding and some graham crackers and whipped cream, and
It sounds actually really good.
it's to die for.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably had it. Probably at your housewarming party.
Yeah.
So I'll ask the next question, and it has to relate to those pesky Norman brothers.
All right.
So,
Yes, all right.
are you a fan of eggnog? Yes or no?
No.
Yes,
Suck it, Norman brothers. Suck it.
but you still have to drink it, Brad.
Yes. Okay. And I'm going to make the announcement. I lost the bet. Edmonton Oilers lost in the qualification round to the Chicago Blackhawks, and I made a bet with Brandon Culpepper. Now I'm going to have to drink a gallon of eggnog live on air coming soon.
You
And
ever
I hate the stuff. I can't.
have you ever done the? I got talked into doing the gallon milk in an hour test one time. Don't do that.
I'm just gonna chug it. I'm gonna have a bucket nearby. I'm just gonna chug it. I'm
Good
gonna
luck.
go.
This is our Discovery Channel episode.
This is my stunt.
Can you get Heavy D and anyone to announce this whole situation? And
Diesel Dave would be
Diesel
good
Dave,
at announcing that. Yeah.
yeah. It just I will leave the screen. It'll just be Brad with Diesel Dave doing the interview.
Oh boy.
I hate the stuff. The amount of
I can see
nutmeg
all the
and
emotions:
cinnamon.
happy, sad, angry, crying, throwing up.
I don't understand eggnog. I don't get it.
It's disgusting is what it is. Mike Hedman, just keep it to yourself, bud. Keep it to yourself. Edmonton messed up. What can I say? They just kind of
cost you on drinking eggnog. Nasty crap.
Ugh.
It's like
good luck with that.
Oh, I'm not looking forward to it. Yeah,
Dustin can't help you on that one, bud.
No, not even enough spiced rum will help eggnog.
No.
Get
you some Timbits and.
Yes, you know what's up. You know what's up, man.
Dude, there's nothing better than Tim Hortons.
Oh, dude,
if you could take a Tim Hortons, a Wawa, and a Whataburger and put them all in the same building.
Okay, Tim Hortons. Okay, do you prefer Tim Hortons over Dunkin' though?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I want to ask this: since you've probably been to multiple Tim Hortons, what's your normal order?
Double.
Yes, you know what? Oh, yes.
Double. Large.
Okay, you know what that makes.
John Zimmer is way more about Tim Hortons than I am.
Oh yeah, we've talked to him before. Yeah. And like that just makes me happy that you actually know what a double is.
Yep.
Certain people don't even know what the heck I'm talking about when I say a double.
That's what I hate about, I don't go to as many shows now and going up north, and I haven't seen a Tim Hortons in years.
Oh, dude, I swear to God, let me just try to. I'm gonna research how many Tim Hortons are in the town that I live in. It's ridiculous.
They're coming south. There's some in Ohio, I think now. Pennsylvania, Cheech.
Mm-hmm. They have one in West Virginia now too.
Oh, they're getting closer to Florida. I still have hope.
Yeah, they're going down to West
50
Virginia.
Years, but
there's 10 Tim Hortons in the town I live in, and there's 2 not even like probably a mile away from each other.
See, that's the equivalent to Dunkin' down here. There's a Dunkin' on every corner down here.
And even here in Canada, there's a liquor store on every corner and a pot shop in every corner now.
Jeez.
Oh, jeez. Up north in like the New England area, there's a Dunkin' like every 5 buildings.
Yep.
Seems like it. And that or an Exxon gas station.
That you can't pump your own gas.
Right. Which is terrible. But that's pretty much, I mean, we do have our do you have any funny we always say rental car stories, but we don't know if you're gonna get blacklisted.
I gotta think of one.
PG.
I could tell on here.
Or maybe a funny gag. You know what I mean? Like a
pranks or
something like that.
I could tell you I was driving the rig down the road one day, bobtailing to the hotel, and I looked over for some odd reason and pulled the air handle.
Oh my
and locked
goodness.
the brakes up going at like 50 miles an hour. I don't know why. Just reached over and grabbed it and pulled it. I don't shut the air off. Trying to think of a rental car story. There's a parking. You've been to Syracuse, Cheech?
Yeah.
The hotel with the parking garage. It's like a rallycross track.
Mm-hmm.
Because the turns in the parking garage are not covered. So the turns, while you're going up, it's slick. But once where the parking spots are, it's dry. So you could rally race up and down that thing, and we did. And there might have been a mirror get hit. But a lot of the stuff I can't tell on here.
Okay.
I'll get in trouble.
How about a funny Mike wine story? We've had Mike on a few times, and some of the stories that he has told us, even with just him and Dennis, are legendary.
Yeah, Mike Wine would do things that would just make you want to choke him. Like he would get himself dirty. He would take his finger, run it across the fifth wheel plate on the rig, and stuff the grease up under the door handle of the rig and pack it in there. So it wasn't like it was a little drop. He would pack it in there. When you stuck your finger in, you'd get covered. He was there at World Finals in 05, 06 when they the building was throwing away all their popcorn they didn't sell. And there's these big 55-gallon trash bag full of popcorn, probably hundreds of these bags. And they're dragging them from the stadium out to the trash can. They're going to throw them away. Well, Mike Wine gets the decision to get all these bags of popcorn after Tom left. They got in his trailer. They filled the whole trailer full of popcorn. They filled the stacks on the Peterbilt full of popcorn. You open the door of the trailer, and it was nothing but popcorn. Mike Wine, you did not want to – if he did something to you, you never try to get him back because the second time was always worse. You had to just take it and like it. There was no paying him back.
He was telling stories about, him working with Tony and how he had to pick up Cole and creep Cole out for first time meeting him. And they warned Cole, but I don't think they warned him enough about what he was getting into. And Mike had to pick him up because Tingler and Alex wouldn't stop. They drove right on through the truck stop. So Mike Wine had to pick him up. But Mike Wine, he's a great dude. Great dude. Yeah, we see him a lot. He always stops by the shop and stuff like that and tells stories and stuff. So he's always a good guy and stuff like that. But you in trouble?
No, we're good.
Oh, okay. But,
I didn't finish all my chores for the day.
Well, cue the Undertaker song.
It's all good. I got all day tomorrow.
So, anything you want to say to the fans, stuff like that following you? And
there've been a lot of years of support, and a lot of people. I go to shows now, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're still around." I'm like, yeah, I didn't go anywhere. I still work for Monster Jam. I'm still around. Just work at the office all the time now, and I go out to the shows a lot. I'm in charge of a lot of driver safety stuff, so I go out and work with the drivers and all that kind of stuff. So I see a lot of fans and just the support. Even this, I haven't driven for 4 years now, and just to be able to walk through the pit party and have somebody recognize you, it's still pretty cool. It gives you that feeling that all the years of hard work, you actually accomplished something.
Do you normally still have people coming to you and saying, "Hey, you're crewing for Dennis's truck," or they just know you as a driver?
Both. It's when I first started driving, it was all, oh my God, it's Dennis's crew chief. It took me a while to get away from that stigma of Dennis's crew chief. But yeah, it's both. There's a lot of the older fans that now have kids. They were kids. Older, I mean, like early 30s. They were kids when I was with Dennis, and then they got to see me come in driving, and just, I still get messages on Facebook and stuff, and it's just great. Just the fans, these fans of Monster Trucks and Monster Jam are diehard fans, and once you become a fan of this, you don't ever give it up.
Is there any social media that fans can find you on? Facebook, Instagram.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I couldn't tell you what my handles are. I hardly ever post anything on them. Cheech will probably know all that. He probably knows how to find me. But
just type in his name.
Yeah, there's a fan page there. I don't, once I quit driving, I kind of quit doing the social media thing. I just get on there now and
put your 2 cents in. Put your 2 cents in and fan them out, and people are like, "Who said that?"
Adam used to get mad at me because I would go on these, the fan Facebook pages, and somebody would say something, and I would just completely go off on them, and then they'd be like, "Dude, they don't know the backstory. They don't know what's really going on, and you're completely going off on them, and they don't know the whole story." I did it the other night after the record show. I probably shouldn't have, but it's just social media is fun. I didn't really grow up in that social media age, so it's not like on the phone 24/7 doing all that. That's one thing I don't miss about driving. If I was driving now, it's all about social media. And thanks.
Your wife's got us covered. So
I got my PR managers in there handling it for me. But yeah, you can follow me on social media. Now you're going to see hog hunting pics and pics with my family and fishing and on the boat.
Arts and crafts.
Farm simulator.
Arts and crafts.
Yeah,
You got to post a picture of your farm, man. Show the progress.
I'm going to get yelled at. She's going to yell at me again. I think she's getting tired. She's ready for me to go back on the road. When I get up at 5 a.m., start drinking coffee and playing farm and thinking, all right, about 9 o'clock, I'm going to start doing something. And it's 2:30 in the afternoon. And I'm still in my PJs. Got that field done, though.
That's like my days off of work. Time flies when you're doing that.
My last question I wanted to ask you was, what was your favorite place to race at?
As a crew chief would be Vegas, just because of everything that went with that. That was our pinnacle. That was nothing. You could win all the trophies in the world if you never won Vegas. It's great.
You're getting called out.
Yeah.
See this show ending soon.
Oh, we can go 4 hours if you want. Probably, but driving would have to be St. Louis. It's my hometown show. I grew up a half hour from that building. So to be able to go there and perform in 15 to 16 was great. Saw a lot of people I hadn't seen since high school. They're coming through the line with their kids, and it was I really enjoyed them shows.
Did you ever race at the hockey arena? No, I don't think Monster Jam ever does that, right?
No, we never did the hockey arena in St. Louis. My dad did back in the day.
The Checker Dome, right?
Well, it used to be the Checker Dome, and then they moved over to the new one.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going to the old Checker Dome for truck and tractor pulls, and I was there when Barefoot blew the doors off when he made that big jump and stuff like that. So it was really cool. A lot of history of monster trucks in general in St. Louis.
So what's the story Yoho keeps on asking about this Dad Bod Squad for life?
Dad Bod Squad?
Yeah.
It was so what happens when you get older and you get kids? You get a little chunky. Next time I see you over an apple cider, I'll tell you the Dad Bod Squad story.
Okay.
What really was going to happen out of that?
Okay, and this is my last question. Who was your favorite opponent in your driving career to line up against? The guy that you had a lot of fun with whenever you guys would line up.
I loved racing Damon Bradshaw. To be able to race him at that point, he was arguably probably top two or three, driving wise. Straight pure talent. So to race him, I raced him a couple times, whether it be 2015, 2016, we were both on them point series together. And just to race him, you knew you had to bring your A game every time you ran him because he never made mistakes. If he did, it was mechanical that he had nothing to control over. But just to race him and even the same when I was a crew chief, there was, when I was with Dennis, it was Tom Mintz. We had to beat Tom every time out. One, because it was more Dennis and Tom and me and Beaver. I didn't want Beaver to win, but probably Tom as a crew guy and Damon as a driver.
Yeah, it's always fun to watch you could say it was a rivalry between Gravedigger and Max D, but watching, I think the crazy thing when you say Damon is just, he pushes you where you have to teach yourself how to beat him. Yeah. And because like you said, his runs are always perfect. He was always in the top three in the time qualifiers for it, but you had to be perfect. And then in freestyle, I mean, you couldn't stop. You had to stop what you're doing and watch what Damon was doing, freestyle wise.
It's the same way right now. Like Cody Saucier in racing, the smoothest guy. He don't make mistakes, and he's smooth. He's not out there trying to set the fastest time ever, but he's so smooth. It's almost slower is faster. And then everything, Todd LeDuc, he's kind of he's kind of taken over. You know, he obviously took over for Damon. He's kind of filled that spot as same way Damon drove. You know, a threat everywhere he goes. And Adam, Ryan, Camden Murphy's really kind of come into his own since he got in the Bakugan truck. I think he won 5 races in a row or something this winter. But he's another racer like Cody, really smooth. It'd be fun to get back in it right now and just go to compete with these newer athletes coming out.
Like Justin
Sipes. I would love to go do a triple threat. Only one weekend. I don't think I could do the whole year, but just go do a triple threat, do something different. I loved doing arena shows. Arenas, they were so much fun. You know, that year I was with Chucky. We did a lot of the arenas were on our tour, and we just had a lot of fun doing them.
That was the first time you saw me run at Reno.
Yep. Old Reno.
Old Reno. Buddy. But, yeah, I mean, outside of that, I'm kind of pooped. But, Dustin, thank you.
No problem, guys.
Everything, and thank you for being on, too. It was good talking to you about your history and stuff like that, and also what you're doing today, and Farm Simulator for life,
yeah, hoping ready to get back out there. Hopefully this COVID shuts down sooner than later. I think the whole world's ready to get back to normal and get back to doing what we love. So
wait until November.
Yeah, November 6th. Exactly.
Yeah. But I think the damage is already done, and it's more long term than people think it is. So, but
yeah, no, I think it's gonna bounce back. It's just gonna take time. Eventually, people are gonna want to get out and start doing stuff. So I know I'm ready. I'm ready right now.
Right.
Trust me, I'm Mitch, and the one monster truck show that I was excited for this month got canceled. So I'm like,
because I'm a huge college football fan, and now I'm seeing college football starting to drop off like flies. They're canceling their whole season.
Yeah.
Which is, it sucks because I like football in general, but I mean, what are we going to do in the fall?
Yeah, and it's as much as bad as it is, it's for the best. You know what I mean? We gotta curtail this and keep everybody safe. It'll get better once we get a vaccine, or however they're planning on combating this. We'll all make it through it together and come out smelling like roses on the other end.
Got to go through crap before you grow flowers. So
yes, sir.
That's what the saying goes. But Dustin, once again, thank you so much for being on. Before we go, thank you to our sponsors: J Concepts, High Octane Coffee, Back Channel Productions, JB Scale Graphics, 6B Apparel, Marty Garza's Monster Truck Technology book. I named him without even looking at the bar. But outside of them, thank you so much for that. And anything else before we go there, Brad?
No. Just reminder, guys, on the 20th, we have Brian Loans coming on. Cheech will announce who our next week's guest is within the next day or so.
And Thursday, Jared Eichelberger.
Yeah,
will be on this Thursday.
Is he going to be live with you?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. But there could be a possibility, Brad, that you're probably going to have the interview by yourself with him. I'll probably driving to Muncie, Pennsylvania, and I doubt I'll have internet service like last week.
Not in Muncie.
No.
Not in Muncie.
Yeah, I'll be probably trying to learn how, figure out the roadways through there, especially in Pennsylvania. There's not even like one flat spot in that whole state. So
you gotta get Tim on here.
We have him on audio.
Oh, do you?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I had Mark a couple weeks ago.
Cool.
But next week, I think next week is the 18th.
The 20th is Brian Loans, and the 18th is
you'll find out. But it's an old school guy.
Yeah.
So it's another Kicking Old School episode. I'll release the information after this. But once again, fans, if you want people to be on, just let us know and we'll try to get connected. There's some people that we may not be able to get or a little bit too difficult because sometimes they don't believe in the cell phone and or emails. But we'll try to do that. But anyway, I'm Dan Chiche, gosh.
And I'm Brad Shaw, and that is Dustin Brown. And this has been Crush This, a Monster Truck Podcast Live. And as we always say here, guys, keep the rubber side down and the shiny side up. Peace.